And hello, let's make a quick mic check. And hello and welcome to another session of making Fanart mashup. Yeah, I guess we will continue in a minute. Yeah, I need to do a quick thing, so one sec. Yeah, so I guess let's continue. So this is continuation of the previous streams. This is like 13th part, where I continue to work on this Fanart piece, which is, again, the whole point of this piece is to showcase like Angry Birds against Transformers or versus Transformers. Basically, Angry Birds on Cybertron attending a tea party. So throughout the whole process, I struggled a lot, but now we are pretty close, I guess, to the I don't know, not to the finish line, but again, we're almost finished with a beginning parts of the creation process, and pretty soon we're going to finishing stages. So for now, these are the so-called explorational stages. right now we are still on explorational 2D sketching phase, which we are kind of, I don't know, I decided yesterday that I'm going to back and forth between 4th stage and 5th stage because kind of 5th stage is pretty close to final realization, but it still kind of works as a beginning stage. So yeah, as I said before, I don't think that there is a middle stage for the creation process, because you kind of have, I don't know, like first 5 are almost always feel like the beginning stages of the creation process, and then you kind of getting right away into the finalization, so you kind of don't see a middle, at least don't feel it, because everything up to the 5th stage seems like a beginning, and everything that after this 5th stage, 6, 7, etc. till 10th stage, it all feels like just finishing touches. So that's why I actually don't see like the middle stage. So yeah, basically practically all today's stream was reference search, and I finished this reference search. So basically I searched everything that I could on the web. So these are our results that we are in the end found. Let's just make a quick overview of them. I don't know, let's do this already. Or no, wait a minute. Yep. Yeah. So these are the things that we are found. Mostly by searching these type of references, I tried to answer all these questions. So I tried to answer questions about character poses, so basically adding new information to picture them much more properly, basically extract them from my imagination, and I needed pretty good amount of references, because again, I'm dealing right now with unfamiliar subject. Yes, I watched all Transformers movies, I've seen Angry Birds movie, but that's it, so kinda not that much to it. And of course, since I saw them only once, the only movie that I kinda watched on repeat a couple of times, it's probably third Transformers. So I'm not that familiar with all these subjects. At least I didn't plan to draw them or create an art for them when I watched them before. So something of course got added into my memory bank in terms of like my visual library, but still not enough to just like make this type of a complex fan art. Because again, I'm considering it complex because it has like full composition. So it's this type of fan art is not just a character in the center or a little bit like to the left or to the right with a simple background. This is actually like full illustration, and when you're working with full illustrations, of course, they are pretty complex. Because when you're working with illustration, you always have to put pretty decent amount of thought into composition, into gestures and whatever. So basically, when you're working with illustration, you think you have to think about everything. And when you're working with character design, you basically have to think about character mostly. So you don't have to like spread your mind into considering like this type of composition. You still work on composition, but this composition work and design work only inside the character. So it's kind of more limited, I'd say, than when working with illustration. So that's why it's pretty complex, at least for me. And I had to find a way to approach this properly, to deal with this properly, because again, if I wouldn't approach this properly, I would definitely so if I'm not going to approach this properly, I definitely not going to finish this work. But I want to do that. I want to finish it in the end. So these approaches by layering I try to implement them. So yeah, let's just slowly try to put my mind into work, because kinda, again, when you're starting to put your mind, first couple of minutes you need to concentrate, maybe more than couple of minutes, probably like 20 minutes or so. You need to kind of concentrate, put your mind into this work, focus on things, kind of, I don't know, inject yourself into this world, try to kind of vision this world more, because when outside of this project, of course, there's a life, there's a bunch of things that you need to think about, and you not always think about this. So usually when you kind of get back into some type of projects that you're working on, you need to kind of, you have to put a little bit time to just, again, get accustomed to them. So basically, when you're trying to do it, your mind is trying to restore these neural pathways that were created before, in order to work more efficiently with your memory and the things about this project. So yeah, so right now I'm just basically going to slowly talk, analyze, and then I will go into work right away. So again, today I plan to use all these references that we found, and these references that I found separately from streams. Again, yesterday I talked about the problem of searching throughout live streams movie scenes. Of course, I can't show you like movie scene neither from internet, and like it's, yeah, it definitely will create copyright problems. So that's why we need to kind of, when we are going to work even in the future with a reference search, I will try to stream only reference search like through some type of search engines, because this is not an illegal thing to do. It's not like breaks any copyright problems, at least in my notion. I don't think so. But I definitely think that if I would basically stream parts of movie, even if just for the demonstrational purposes or educational purposes, it would still become a problem. So I can kind of show snapshots from the movie, but I can't translate or the whole movie, because again, this will result in copyright problems. So that's why I worked on this separately. As I said before, how you would approach this: you basically type in Google search Angry Birds movie scene, something like this. If I'm wrong, yeah, I was wrong. So yeah, you just basically type in and just watch these type of videos and try to pick from all these videos snapshots, or I don't know if it's a legal way to do that or not. So basically, as we know, there's a bunch of online sources that we could kind of watch films. Again, if we're going to use them only for the reference purposes, so for the reference search, I think, and not going to distribute them in any way. I think it's not like breaks any law in terms of, again, for that you have to probably talk with a lawyer. But again, in my kind of view, I don't think that this is kind of something. If you use something for these type of purposes and you're not distributing it in any way and just using it for educational purposes, we all saw a bunch of artists use snapshots from series and from movies in order to study them. There's a bunch of courses that uses them, so I think it's pretty normal thing to do. No one's at least got in trouble by doing this, at least from what I know. So yeah, basically you search for in the internet some type of scenes of these movies or the movies itself in online sources, and basically just go through these movies and snapshots, and using snapshots in order to make like just basically a snapshot a photo of a particular moment in the movie, and so this is how you do it. So again, since demonstrating this on stream is definitely a problem, I did this by myself, so outside of the stream. So again, we found most of the basic information right here, and but still I thought that there's limits to what you can find in pictures, because again, if you get lucky, yeah, you will find particular pose or pretty close pose that you are looking for, but mostly you need to find much more, I don't know, like extended ways or additional ways to find references. And yeah, the proper way, of course, is by the films that you think could help you. Of course, before buying them, you need to make sure that they have all needed reference material that you need. Same for series, just basically subscribe to some type of platforms that provide series on monthly basis or daily basis on demand. So basically there's a bunch of resources in the internet to find what you need. The only thing you need to kind of know how to do it and where to find it and where to search for. So again, when you are working with wait a minute. No, I don't believe this is this. Yeah, when you're working with some type of a external reference search, you definitely not go into deep. You're not going to search for a particular detail. But again, on this particular stage that we are on, we have to go into much more detailed research, because right now we're actually searching for particular poses, particular designs that we could implement. That's why we need a much more extensive research for that. And again, internet full of resources like that, we always there's a bunch of resources that could help us. The only thing, we need to know where to find them. Again, in my opinion, if you work with something familiar, for instance, like Fanart, Angry Birds movie, whatever, or Transformers, the clearest and smartest thing to do, or should I say not smartest, but obvious thing to do is to go into the searching movie scenes. And if you're not going to find movie scenes in particular, just go and find the movie itself somewhere on the web, and use it just for the snapshots only. Yeah, there's a again, fun sites where Angry Birds, yeah, for Angry Birds I think always have this type of information in them, and the same for Transformers. So basically, or easy just YouTube scenes from the movie, like funniest scenes or something like this. Again, same for the Transformers, like action-packed scenes or trailers. They provide pretty extensive information, not like complete chunk of information like the movie provides, the whole movie, but still, if we don't have any other possibilities, we have to use things that we have. Yeah, so I kinda rumbled a lot, so yeah, let's just, and so basically what I talked about previously, that I will do this type of search outside the stream, and right now I guess it's time to show you the results of the search. Yeah, so hello. So yeah, these of course are saved on my computer as a snapshots, as a screenshots. In addition to these references, so right now I'm basically going to show you all these things, and then I will probably turn them off, and I'm going to just basically look at them and try to analyze them. At least I probably could keep turned on this thing, but I can't show you this one at the same time while I'm painting, because it's going to be a pretty problematic thing to do. So yeah, it's kinda, I have to divide screens, and I don't have that much space in the monitor, so if I had like the third monitor, probably, maybe, I don't know, no. So that's why I'm just going to show you what type of references I gathered and what things I'm going to look for in these references. So yeah, basically I have like two folders. It's Angry Birds folder and Transformers folder, when basically I just took a bunch of snapshots from the movie itself, either from internet, mostly that, yeah, from the internet. So yeah, so these are the shots that I took for Angry Birds, as we see. So my motivation behind taking these shots first is the exploration, of course. The more shots I have for these characters in different positions, the more my mind could use them for creating something of my own. Yes, so these are like mostly explorational, so I would probably use them only for the expressions. Most of them was taken for the reason of understanding how they move. So this is pretty evident with Chuck. I took a bunch of snapshots of Chuck. The reason being, I needed to know, since this character is pretty, I would say, awkward looking in terms of movements, for me at least, I need to understand how he moves, and the more sequences I have about him moving, the more I understand his, I don't know, I'd say behavior, or something like that. So how he behaves, how his anatomy works, mostly how his anatomy works, because again, as I said before in the previous stream, we need to understand how a creature or person that we are drawing, or character that we are creating, how we have to imagine how this character is moving, what type of moves he can do, what type of moves he can't do, in order to understand where's the limits. And usually I think professional artists call this an extremes, especially this is in animation. I think animators using these type of terms. So basically you need to understand the extreme poses for your character in order to understand his or her limitations. And when you're creating your own character, it's of course much more harder. That's when you have to base this type of reference search on something similar to your character, and it gets much harder, of course, because you need to find and understand what's much more appropriate for your character. But if we're dealing with Fanart, it's much easier, because again, we already have this information out there. The only thing that we need to do is just to find this information and use it properly. So that's what we're doing now. We're trying to find this information and use it properly. So again, these are all with some type of an extreme poses for Chuck. This one is extreme for condensed type. So what Chuck is looking like, it looks like when he is, I don't know, not free but collected in terms of a gesture. Again, everything right here is I'm talking about this one. Yes. Do you see a cursor? Yeah, I think you see it. So yeah, this, for instance, again, how Chuck is condensed. For instance, the other poses that we are going to see there would be the poses where Chuck is most free looking, etc. Again, these type of poses was for the sake of understanding how these birds are sitting, how they placing their legs, because again, their legs are pretty funny, and it's pretty easy to go into awkward stages when you're trying to draw them. Again, when you work with unfamiliarity, it's always hard to make it realistic, and in order to not make it robust, we need to take this stage in order to understand what's looking good and what's looking bad, because again, people that were behind creating this movie already did this for us, and the only thing we need to do is just analyze how they did it. And yeah, this is a pretty awesome shot. Most of the shots was just like, for instance, yeah, that's what I talked about. So when we see in this, when we looking at this shot, why it's not opening full screen? It kind of has to. It's like yeah, I guess I'm in selecting item mode. Yeah, somehow yeah. For instance, when we're looking at this shot, the problem of this shot is that how awkward is he looking. So it's horrible pose. If you try to draw this type of pose in a final picture, people that going to see this pose definitely will kind of notice how bad this pose is, because this is pretty, like, it constantly brings your attention. Yeah, and we need to get rid of these type of poses and create organic pose, because this pose is definitely not looks organic. It looks like, I don't know, forced. And since this is like a in-between pose in animation, this is not a key pose. This pose was just basically taken in a milliseconds moment, and viewers definitely did not notice her, I think. But if you're like snapshot it and use it as a particular reference, of course it definitely looks awful. But again, so basically when we're talking about poses, we need to think about key poses, like use the animation terms. So we're looking as illustrators, we're usually as a character designers too, we usually looking on a key poses. We're not working with in-between poses. That's why we need to search for all these things. So yeah, again, Bomb, for him, I was just basically was interested how he would sit. Again, he is pretty round character, and this creates a pretty big awkwardness, because and when we see right here, this looks pretty cool and pretty realistic. The same for Chuck, because he is not that big, but this one looks awkward. because again, he's pretty big, and even in reality, for a big person, it's pretty hard to sit like this and not look awkward. So the same I think they used when they tried to kind of design check. Yeah, so because again, when you have that much weight, you're less mobile, and it creates like these type of situations that you sitting and it's pretty uncomfortable. Yeah, so I think we need to think about these things when we are working on particular characters, because again, we want to make them realistic, and the only way to make something realistic is of course use reality as a something to work with. So again, these are most like hesitation or some type of yeah, so rejection. I needed to just see as much characteristics as possible in these characters in order to understand what they're doing and how they're doing. One of the ideas is to replace Bomb with this guy. I forget how his name is, what his name is, but still, but I guess he would be too big for us in the scene. And his design, of course, is much complex. He looks more like a bird. He doesn't have like complete one shape body like the rest of them. He has actually like separate head, separate body, and he actually looks more like a bird. These looks like less like a bird. Yeah. Again, these poses are mostly to see or showcase the Chuck's silliness. That way, again, I could understand what his extremes are and how far I can push it myself. For these, again, how Red is behaving, how Bomb is behaving in extreme poses, again, how Red is behaving in extreme poses, yeah, how anatomy works in terms of connecting wings to the body, and of course close-ups is always a good thing, and of course these type of things where this is basically reference for textures, I think, because since they went through war against Transformers, I think it would be a pretty smart thing to do to showcase that they went through war. So they definitely not going to be clean and I don't know, brushed like here. They definitely going to look like a little bit, I don't know, chaotic. So these references are basically was captured for the sake of understanding how would I approach a different type of texture. But again, about texture, we're still going to talk about textures on later stages, but for now, again, and also the poses and expressions right here are pretty cool too. So these type of things I could use, or these type of things I could use as a inspiration for a particular expression for the Bomb, for the Chuck, etc. For Red. Again, right here I felt that I didn't have that much information about Bomb, and I decided to gather a little bit more information about him. So yeah, how he sits, how he is usually kind of sad or disappointed. So yeah, these type of phrases, these type of poses. Same for this one, same for this. Actually was for the Bubbles, because as I said before, I didn't have that much information about Bubbles, and Bubbles again appeared only, at least I saw it only in, so this is the first appearance of Bubbles in the movie. This was probably the second appearance of Bubbles in the movie, and kind of the last one. Yeah, so I needed to just see Bubbles, how he or she moves. Again, the voice of Bubbles in the movie actually was kind of strange. It's pretty hard to understand if he is a male or female. It's pretty strange thing to kind of throws me off a little bit. Yeah, again, the extremes of the Bubbles in terms of expression, This is the most calm extreme, this is most crazy extreme, I guess, or this is crazy extreme. This is extreme in terms of how his anatomy or her anatomy works, because he kind of blows up, or blows off, I don't know how you probably say it. Yeah, so yeah, basically bubbles again. Additional snapshots for a bomb, for a chuck. This again for the texture's sake, because right here I just basically, and I kind of like gestures, so right now he's actually feeling guilty and I needed to somehow depict this type of motion. So I think this type of motion I actually wanted to showcase in the sitting pose in my work. So yeah, right here is basically all these snapshots where how he would interact with things. So basically how their wings are actually working like like hands, because right here, of course, he mostly doing the same as I wanted to do him in my illustration. So right here, I basically he holds a cup, and the only thing, he holds it pretty close to his hair, to his beak, like drinking it. When right here we now have some type of an example how this works. Again, this expression is pretty close to what I would probably imagine. So yeah, the same for this one. Again, this one I will definitely use to understand how his wings behave when he is putting them closer to his beak, and the same for how he would his face would change in this type of position. Same for this one, just basically understanding how these birds are placing their hands, mostly like humans, so, but they have like 4 fingers. This is the whole thing about animation, because 5 fingers animation, it's pretty awkward usually, so they use like 4 fingers animation, but still we are so this is one of the things that actually to know, that when we are going to draw for them kind of wing fingers, we need to think about that too. So yeah, these are the all references that in regards to Transformers that I kind of find in addition, going through the additional search. That not that much of them, but still it also didn't took me a long time, because again, it's pretty easy thing to do. The only problem that it would be just saving them like this, cropping them, I say. This is the only thing, and saving them, but finding them and making snapshots, it's not that problematic. Now we are going to Transformers. So in the Transformers, let's just begin from the bottom, because there were the first snapshots that I took. So with Transformers, of course, I needed to answer questions like, with Transformers actually were basically a bunch of problems, because in these references that we took through the internet, through the picture or imagery search, we found pretty interesting designs, we found how we would use them, but still it seemed like I didn't have that much information to decide what is going to be used as chairs, what part of the Transformers. Still didn't have an answer. How would I approach these piles of Transformer parts, broken Transformer parts? So basically the same for statues, I guess. I kind of found something about statues right here, but again I felt that I needed a little bit more information, because again, 1-2 references for imagining a statue design, it's pretty weak. We need to have a little bit more, yeah. So that's why yeah, the same is, so basically all things that I'm going to talk about right now about transformer references is basically I tried to picture find references for the walls, for ceilings, for gate design, for the statues, for swords, for basically for all these things that we have for the floor. Yeah, so for all things interior, floor, ceiling, gate, walls, for the Quintessa, how would I picture her under the table, and how she would look like, at least some information that could inspire me to understand how I would put her out there. Statues, how they are going to look, chairs, what parts of the transformers I would use. Again, in terms of accessories, most of the accessories we can establish, because again, in terms of accessories, we just basically need to use a real life references, which not that hard thing to find. So for that, of course, you don't need to search movies and yeah, so basically it's pretty enough thing to do, just go to the internet and search for some type of imagery. But in these cases, when we're working like with unfamiliar territories like Transformers and Angry Birds, there's pretty limited information to them because they have to look specific way, and that's why kind of extended research needed, at least for me. Yeah, so let's just quickly discuss this thing. So yeah, gladly I didn't forget to turn off the timer, because previously I forgot to turn on the timer, and the whole previous stream was without the timer. Not that big of a deal, but I kind of was a little bit disappointed that I forgot about it. So yeah, right here again, the all questions that I tried to ask with these shots and trying to save them is is to see how the Cybertron is looking. So basically the look of a Cybertron, how Cybertron looks outside, inside, what type of design he uses. Again, as I said before, I still think that Transformers world is too complex in terms of a design. He definitely had to be much more simple, but I guess the people who did this were keep in mind something when they did this, so I'm not going to judge them based on my opinion. But still, in my opinion, I think one of the problems of the Transformers movie is that they are too complex, and this complexity, I'm going to go back and forth talking about this complexity in practically all scenes that we're going to encounter. And yes, I dig that this complexity looks cool and you trying to respect artists that worked on it, because you kind of respect how amount of work they put into it. But in terms of visual design, in terms of how it balanced or not balanced, it looks pretty busy. And when design is too busy, it's bad. This is one of the principles of design. Design has to be clear. If design is too busy, it's bad. But still, somehow through these business, you kind of see some type of like clearness in them. But in some type of in some Transformers, they're so busy that you can't even tell one from another, especially when we talk about Decepticons. Yeah. So yeah, let's continue. So basically, I tried to picture how would Cybertron look. Again, this one I could use for the walls, for the floor, especially right here. This reference is basically I would definitely use for the floor or depicting a floor. Actually, something like this I imagined. So floor is going to be, I don't know, looks like some type of a, I don't know, ritual patterns of somehow or something like this. Again, these circles, this definitely will tell us that this is definitely Cybertron. and that way we could definitely showcase or make our statement clear that Angry Birds are on Cybertron, if it's not going to be clear by adding their transformers. Yeah. Same for the statues. Again, right here I also tried to depict the statues itself, so to try to figure out how they would look, how complex they would look. Again, the cool thing about statues here on Cybertron, they're much more simpler than the transformers itself. Maybe because they're statues, but still, this is a pretty cool thing. Again, Quintessa, how she looks, because it's going to be pretty hard to create her, because again, she is over complex. She's so complex that it's kind of annoying, because if you try to actually draw this, yeah, without some type of special texture brush, you definitely it definitely will take you a good month I guess, if you try to render every part and actually showcase it without some type of effects. Yeah, in a close-up like this, it's still manageable to simplify all these things and just suggest them by strokes, but still it's pretty challenging to do. So again, for this, just understanding how backgrounds are looking. I actually made a couple of additional ones at the end, because I kind of felt that not every shot was properly taken. So again, Quintessa in full size, just basically to understand how she looks from far, understanding her proportions in relation to Transformers itself. Again, the same. This is just her close-up. This is like walls, what type of textures I would use for the walls. Yeah, this is inside the ship, but still we could use these type of ornaments for our walls in order to make them look like a Cybertron. Again, a floor example, example of statues standing behind, or these statues that are bending the knee. Same for this one. This is basically just to showcase abandonment, because again, this ship was abandoned centuries ago, I guess, and he kind of grown with a bunch of Elkai. I don't know. Elgai. I don't know. I don't remember how it's called. LG. Водоросли, короче. Let's just find it in Russian. Try to find it in Russian. Yes, algae.
Seaweed.
Algae? And I need to hear this.
Seaweed.
Nope, not seaweed. I need alternative, please. Google Translate, give me alternative.
Algae.
Algae. So yeah, I meant algae. Funny, this word is actually sounds funny. Yeah, so again, so to showcase abandonment, okay, this one is what I actually pictured from the beginning, like these statues that basically stand across the wall and like some type of a corridor or hall, and something like this I'm actually kind of pictured in my mind. The funny thing that practically the same thing I actually got in result. The only difference is different camera angle. Yeah, so different camera angle and tilted thing to showcase this, I don't know, emotional tense or emotional anticipation that walls are basically trying to... come on. Wait a minute. It's like the pressure from walls and pressure for the ceiling again. This is the reason why I added this tilt right here. And the same tilt is going to be with statues though, which is completely opposite from what we are looking here. Because right here all statues kind of lying in a rest position, but yeah. So again, depicting statues, and this is pretty cool because earlier these statues are going to come to life, which is a concept that we're going to use in our work. Again, these statues from far, floor, the design of the statues, because these are basically guys that came from these statues, and use this design for them would be pretty cool. Again, if we would create something on our own, we would just basically use something similar, but since we need to kind of showcase that this is Cybertron and we need to showcase that there are Transformers, we need to work with similarity and something that people saw at least. And these knights, guardian knights, we definitely will use them as a reference. Again, we need to simplify them, but the cool thing about knights, they're pretty simple. So the thing that I like about these knights, and I don't like about like Autobots and some Decepticons, that these are actually simple and they look pretty cool. The problem, of course, they are why they probably not looking cool, because they are pretty rusted and with practically no color. Or color variations. That's why they're not standing out. But still, they kind of an old school characters. And Quintessa is something in between. Autobots, Decepticons, Transformers, and these, because she is the mother. The mother. So right here is basically, I don't know what I tried. Oh yeah, I tried to picture this ring that I wanted to draw around the table. So basically, I talked about the ring that would be around the table, and this ring is basically the thing that I tried to draw right here. So somewhere right here is going to be the ring. Still need to figure out where it's going to be. I think I will do it today definitely. So yeah, we're almost done with talking about references. Again, the reason why I'm talking about them, because I'm just going to close them and then just going to draw without opening them for you. So I want for you to just kind of understand what I'm going to use and how I'm going to use it, like at least have some type of an idea what I'm using, because these references are going to be on my second monitor and you're not going to see them, but you have to understand that I'm drawing from these references, using them in combinational way, try to implement something of my own and use them as inspiration. Again, Quintessa, again this circle upside down, Quintessa in close up with a full, not full height, but still pretty close. This is just for the sake of understanding how we could make textures for Cybertron, and also this is pretty cool to see by itself. So this is for the probably third Transformers. I don't remember. Yeah, this is the third Transformers, which I actually saw like a bunch of times. I'll probably even have it on Blu-ray somewhere. Yeah. Or DVD, don't remember. So yeah, third Transformers. Basically, but still, I didn't have time to find it, so I just basically took it from the internet. Yeah, so again, this thing is a good example how we could showcase a garbage piles with the parts of the Transformers. At least one of the things that could help us to deal with these type of problems, and the rest that you're going to see is basically destruction that could help us to actually deal with these piles of transformer parts, because again, I don't think that you can leave after destroying a transformer pile of ashes. I don't know what I think about when I said that, because they're kind of made of metal, some type of metal, and I don't think that I don't think that Angry Birds have in their possession that type of weaponry that could destroy, like that could turn metal into ash. Maybe they are, I don't know, we never know that, but still, as an idea, we have to stay pretty close to realistic, so I guess I need to kind of change this pile of ashes and make something out of it, but still it has to be different, because again, as I said before, I want to make this one, and this one similar. Again, they're creating this type of compositional triangle which goes through almost every character, and this one, and this one are going to create another triangle that will go through the rest of the characters. And the cool thing, if we are trying to use diagonal composition or diagonal translations, we now kind of see how the eyes of the viewer could kind of work in terms of from one pile to another, because again, they are going to be repetitive elements, they're going to be pretty similar to each other, and you viewers definitely going to notice them, and they're going to be some type of a frame, and you can choose whatever pathway you want. You can choose this one, you can start there and go right there right away, you can go from here to here to here and to here, so whatever viewer will choose, it's going to be additional pathway to create. And as I said before, these type of pathways, the more we create them, the better for the viewer, and every person that going to look on this work is going to look that differently. The more pathways we have, the more people we potentially could reach. Yeah, so what else? So yeah, basically these references I'm going to use for the depicting these type of piles of garbage, so I just had to saw how it looks. It's not that that's not that big of a information, but still, since piles are not going to be our primary focus, we could suggest something like this, basically this chaotic garbage, and we find with this. It's not our primary focus. They are most of the or not most, but these two are outside of our, wait a minute, I need to find it. Yeah, so these are our areas. So these two piles are outside of our compositional areas, even this one. And these are inside third one, this one too, inside the area of tertiary focus, and this one inside the area of additional focus, which is not important. So that's why we actually don't have to focus on them too much, which is a cool thing, I guess. Whoopah! Yeah. Rip-de-doop-de-doo. So yeah, let's just finish about them. So again, this one, just for the sake of again seeing how these piles would look from the top. There's a bunch of details right here that looks pretty cool. And again, also the cool thing about all of these, they all have in them aerial perspective. So this, like, the further we go, the hazier it gets. So the adding mist to them is of course going to make things look much more, I don't know, cooler. So we're definitely going to think about aerial perspective, but again, it's not much more later stages. We're not going to think about that right now, but still consider it as a future steps. Again, this is one of my favorite moments in the movie, when this, in the third part at least, when this happened. And what I tried to depict with these shots is basically to showcase, again, destruction. How would I put this like craziness into these piles, and on what type of destruction Transformers are capable of. This one actually, I kinda had an idea to use something similar to put as a chairs, but then kind of thought to myself, I don't know, I will think about that. Yeah, so these, and these. This is just like destruction, pure destruction. I'm not going to open them in full screen, it doesn't matter, I guess, because I think you probably see them from far. Either way, they are pretty bad quality, and that's why there's no need to open them in full screen. Only becomes worse. This basically design of one of the knights. This is pretty cool. Close-up design, how we would put knight, and also this is one of the first shots that I took that we could use as a chair for our characters, because it has pretty simple design. It has pretty squished head, so somewhere there I probably took a shot of this. No, I didn't. I thought I did. Either way, so we see that their heads are not that round, so actually our birds actually can sit on them pretty simply. So it's not that hard, even like Cybertron or Megatron itself. So his head is pretty squished, or should I say not squished, but pretty flat, moderately flat. Of course, you're definitely not going to sit on a Optimus Prime's head, because it's pretty with horns, and it's uncomfortable. Your behind is going to be uncomfortable on this. Yep. Yeah, again, destruction. Head itself. How head could look if it was separated from Transformers body. Hello Bumblebee, and bye Bumblebee. Again, another close-up for the design of the statues' head, or heads of Defender Transformers that's already been dead, and Angry Birds are sitting on their heads. Again, just idea for the statues, the same how statue design could look. Actually, I kind of like how they're made Megatron in the last couple of parts. Previously Megatron was too busy, right? Now he looks more like these knights, and he's less busy. I wish they did the same for the Transformers itself, for the Autobots, but still Autobots looks pretty busy in terms of design. Overcrowded with details, unnecessary details. So yeah, right here I just basically figured, oh, I completely forgot about effects. So if we are going to add some type of effects, because again they're gone for war, there's definitely a fire somewhere is going to be, so we for instance could create these pile of ashes just burning. So this is one of the ways how we could actually separate these piles of ashes. So these are going to be already just like pieces of the Transformer parts, but these are going to be so they are going to be on fire. And if I will put on fire this one, and this one, that way it creates pretty interesting contrast. Again, these three piles has to some way be different from these three. composition unit, and that this is a good idea to add a little bit of fire to that, because again, they gone through war, and almost all wars are packed with fire. Imaginary and the real ones. So yeah, again, Cybertron from far, in order to just basically understand how this planet looks. Cybertron from a pretty interesting camera angle. Again, to see the outside look of the basically it's how could I and what I could show in outside the gate. So we can't forget that we have place outside the gate. So on this hall, it's not the end, so we have like pretty big window that we can put something in it, and it has to be pretty cool looking thing. And if I would put there either planets or a sun or some type of pretty interesting clouds, like the atmosphere in the Cybertron, that would be cool. And basically all these things are things that could help us to find a good balance how to do it. So this is basically a how would I depict broken parts of the Transformers. This is actually Optimus Prime, I guess, yeah. This is like what I could place outside of this. How would I approach a light coming from my gates? Pretty cool information, and having this information is actually pretty helpful. Again, in terms of inspiration, of course we're not going to use it like straight away, because I need to somehow like implement all these pictures, or at least things that they inspire in me into. Yeah, this is a pretty awesome shot. Like this thing would be probably cool to draw outside of the gate. It definitely will be pretty beautiful. Yeah, again, I recaptured for the second time additional shots of the Cybertron in this place, to just basically make more to gather more information about ceilings, about surrounding designs, because this shot was closest to a Cybertron design. This thing could work. No, this thing we could use in our gates, so pretty cool too. This type of thing we could use in our walls to make them more like historically, I'd say, to put a little bit of Transformers history into them. What else? So yeah, I guess we need to go in a break, but I still wanted to finish. So yeah, again, Quintessa from different angles to just figure it out, because again, I don't know how I would draw her under the table, and I need more information about her from different angles. This is like from left side of her face, so yeah, this is left side from the back. Again, how would I approach the piles of broken Transformers and this Dino guy? Forgot how his name is. What his name is basically a good example of it. It's pretty busy, bunch of busyness in him, in details that we could use for different, by just putting in different parts and making from them a pile of ashes or pile of garbage. Yeah, Megatron again. Megatron. This is one of the Decepticons. This one I just tried to capture again the pretty cool design of a Megatron. Again, I actually like this new design of the Megatron. it looks pretty cool. It's not that busy, and it's actually cool in terms of a design. Again, right here I just basically wanted to showcase what type of swords we would put in hands of our statue's hands. This just like for the sake of what could I imagine outside of the gate. I don't think that I will draw earth there, but who knows, maybe I will, we'll see. So this is just how outside of this type of building could look. This is probably the ship. Yes, this is the ship that was under the water. Again, destruction. These are again statues, destruction for piles of garbage. Again, statues in much more appropriate angles, because now I'm actually kind of know what I'm looking for exactly. So yeah, again, these are like details of these statues, or broken transformers, I'd say. Again, statues, sword, how we could use it, destruction and fire under the water. This is the moment when statues are coming to life. We could use it by kind of putting some type of, I don't know. So like these statues are actually coming to life. So at the beginning I tried to showcase that these statues are coming to life by just like looking at these guys, so their eyes are going to glow. But now I kind of think that would be cool if, like, for instance, the statue that is further away from them and the furthest basically is going to like come to life, like pieces of statue's shell are basically going to fly around. Yeah, and the statue is trying to become like, already tried to shape some type of pose. That would be pretty cool to implement right here. And also like pretty interesting contrast, like statue that tries to escape this shell, and pretty funny face of this character. So like they're not even knowing what's coming, so they don't even know what's coming, and it's a pretty cool thing to create. Again, one thing to imagine this, and the other thing is to actually create it. But again, in order to create something, you have to imagine it first. And the more information you have in terms of how you imagine it, the better you will realize it. So I hope I will manage to do everything that I'm talking about. I don't know, the part of me actually believes that I can manage to do everything that I talk about, and the part of me kind of don't. I don't know. So this is probably my insecurities coming to life. So I guess we all have our insecurities, our own insecurities. So let's just try to not focus on our insecurities and more on our confidence. So I am somewhat confident that I can do it. So let's just stick to the confidence. And not go into give our insecurities some type of power. Yeah, so again, how the statues could look. This is pretty good example. How would I depict glowing eyes, which is pretty cool. Of course, I would definitely make them much more evident, because right here they're pretty evident, but still, since in our picture they're going to be too far, we need to make them more evident somehow. So I will probably exaggerate this feature and make them like really glow. Yeah, this is how they die. This is basically just a pretty awesome shot by itself. Again, in terms of a creating design, either for walls or for the ceiling or parts of these things, actually, I would think, what if I could use all these things to make a chair for the Angry Birds? But then I thought, like, no, it's going to be pretty strange. it's kind of an easy way out to just put this strange thing instead of a chair. I would just basically stick to knights' heads. Again, I'm not going to showcase any Autobots in my work, I guess, because I wouldn't want to. The thing that is going to be pretty clear that this is the world of the Transformers, I think, is heads of these Transformers, and probably Quintessa is going to be the thing that actually will tell the whole story. Because if people will just see these statues and these heads and they still not going to understand what's happening, because again, these knights are not something that many people are probably familiar with, but Quintessa is something that I guess people know, at least those who saw the last part of the Transformers. And again, I wouldn't want to add these right here Autobots, because that way I'm kind of making Angry Birds and Transformers some type of conflict. Because if I try to put right here Autobots and not Decepticons or some type of Transformers that just on Cybertron defending their home, and by putting right here Autobots, I actually creating a good bad guy conflict. So in this situation, Angry Birds have to be some type of a good guy, because they're kind of Paris Transformers. They're pretty funny, they're pretty relatable in terms of their likeness. You can't say the same for the Transformers, and if I put right here, so that's why I need to create the complete opposite in terms of the storytelling. So create a good contrast, bad, good, or something similar to that. Again, there's no clear lines like good and bad. Of course, some people would choose their side, their own side. For instance, for those who don't like Angry Birds, they will see them as bad guys and these destroyed Transformers as the good guys. But still, the whole thing is to make a clear statement and not confuse the statement. And if I will put right here somewhere Autobots, familiar Autobots, like for instance Bumblebee or Optimus Prime, or one of the other ones that I don't remember names of, yeah, so I definitely will create a pretty big conflict, because again, we're going to see like moderatively good guys, which represents Angry Birds, sitting on good guys' heads. What the? This is strange. So it actually creates a psychological conflict. So in order to avoid these type of psychological conflicts, we need to think about how we would approach this properly. So I think in our best mind, we have to decide to go without Autobots and actually put right here lifeless Transformers, or at least Transformers that are people that not attached to. So just simple statues, some type of knights that they are not going to be familiar with. Yeah, and the rest is going to be just told by composition and poses of Angry Birds and positions of their heads and the whole piece itself. Okay, and let's just finish with this thing. Again, floor and possible design for the textures and colors, whatever, so something like this. Same for this one. No, right, this is actually knights from far in order to see them full height. Again, no, this is night. This is not night. This is actually our Optimus. No, wait a minute, Megatron. Yeah. So, but again, these knights. This is the thing that I definitely will make as a statues. And now the cool thing now, because at the beginning I imagined them with swords, but now I kind of know that some of them actually have had an axe-like thing. You know how you probably call it, this type of weapon, but let's just call it X-like thing. Again, this is pretty awesome. I think like the collision of Earth and Cybertron, just for the sake of inspiration, I think it's pretty cool looking thing. Again, the insides of the other, I'd say, side of this hull. So basically, interior. Also, light. Right here is light. How light could look and how this light could create a pretty interesting lighting conditions. We're definitely going to think about it. And the last shots of the Quintessa with different head pictures. So this is head lifted up, this is head a little bit tilted down. Also how this part looks, because I think if I will use her as a reference, I will use differently this one, because I wanted to put this part of her body under the table, because the rest part of the body is just not going to be visible, I guess, because we have pretty limited space right here to showcase Quintessa. So I guess somewhere here probably is going to be her head. I will think about that. So this is one of the things that I actually need to figure out, and this information is basically will help me to do it. I hope so. So yeah, this is pretty strange shot, but kind of what is here? Ah yeah, there's some statues, some type of effects right here. Yeah, again, Quintessa in a interesting state, and example of how Quintessa looks in human form. I think this is a pretty crucial thing to have. If we have this information, that way we could draw her face less robotic and more human-like, which actually could create some type of a, I don't know, relatability towards her, which we have to make, because again, we have to create, we have to avoid unnecessary conflicts, but if we want to put some type of suggested conflict, we of course put it. So I definitely don't want to put conflict of the Autobots against Angry Birds, but what I could put right here is conflict of putting Quintessa right here and comparing it to Angry Birds. That way either you partial towards Quintessa and hate Angry Birds for what they did, or the opposite, you are love what Angry Birds did and happy for everything that happens. So yeah, so basically giving the audience to choose what they're seeing in here, or not just making things as they are, but actually kind of giving the audience to choose what they could think of, given the choice. So yeah, I think now I go into break, because my energy is just basically dropped off after this a bunch of references, and since right now I'm going to stage of drawing, I need to kind of gather my mind and take a little bit of break. So again, let's just go through our references right here, and then we're going to make a break. So yeah, again, in terms of references, all these designs I'm going to use too. So basically on the second monitor I'm going to open both of these, and from time to time I'm going to go from here to here and try to basically sit, analyze, see what type of design I like, what type of design I don't like, and what type of design I want to implement and where, and how would I implement this design in perspective, because this is a pretty hard thing to do, working with these type of extreme angles. Yeah, Same for the table, same for the accessories. I will try to place accessories based on our yeah, I will try to place accessories based on our flows, so like to make these flows look better, make these things work. So definitely going to use all these things that were created before for analysis. Right now going to work with a see-through examples, because we need to kind of put all these designs inside some type of form, and the best way to put some type of design inside a simple form, or the complex design into simple form, is to see through this form. So these see-through things will definitely help us to make this thing better. Oh yeah, my energy is definitely down, like I'm kind of wear off, but I don't know why. Throughout the day I did a bunch of things, but I didn't thought that it would just basically drove me. It's like my energy is gone. So yeah, I need a little bit refresher by drinking water and stretching a little bit. Usually music that I love to listen is helping me, but again I can't play music that I like on streams, because then I will use these things as recordings, and I don't want to Twitch or YouTube block these, because I used copyrighted music, so we're not going to do it. So I need to find another way to restore energy. Yeah, usually quick break works. So yeah, again, all these things in references that we are found in web are basically going to help us to deal with what type of table we're going to create. So right now I'm going to, the rest of the stream, I basically going to try to sketch all these things that I talked about. Again, this is not finished sketching, definitely is going to be, again, like the last phase of an explorational sketching, and after this phase we'll definitely go into more complex designs, because right now the things that I can't draw right here for some reason, either because I don't know a form of particular design, or I'm not familiar with a particular camera angle for this design. Or basically we're going to right now by making this sketch we're going to answer these questions, and then when these questions are not answered, but we're going to ask these questions, and after these questions are going to be asked, if you can say that, that's then we are going to much more extensive search, and this extensive search is going to be based on 3D. So now we are going to think about how things actually look in 3D, try to picture every type of design from different angles. It probably will make us to study things. So I guess we will, if something not going to work in here, and I will definitely feel like I need more information about this subject. For instance, if I'm not going to draw well this guy, then I will definitely go back and try to analyze his form from different angles, and after that, of course, in final sketch I will implement all this knowledge and all this practice and all these studies that I did. The same for every object and subject in the scene. This is basically how things is going to work from now on. So we are going to try to draw all these things, just basically looking on references and trying to implement these design elements right here without any form analyzation, or at least complex form analyzation. But if we starting to feel that it's not working and we need more information, then we're of course we'll go into stage of much more, I would say, direct studying. I don't know, because this stage I call direct implementation of the design. So what I mean by that, so basically we have all these references and we using these references in order to basically just using these references to implement inspirational design that we see in these references right into our basic shapes. So this thing I called like direct implementation. But the problem about direct implementation, when you're an experienced artist, yes, direct implementation is probably the thing that you will use. But if you're not experienced artist, as I am, in terms of a practice, you definitely will run into a bunch of problems. And instead of just redrawing a bunch of times this thing with a chicken scratch size thumbnail, we go into stages of studying this form to understand it better, and then when we are going to the stage of final sketching, we now go into create or make this. So basically, I don't know. So direct implementation, it's when you're trying to use references and looking back on references, you're basically implementing everything in your work right away. And if you do it properly, then you don't need to go through a studying stage. But if you can't do something and it looks bad, then you definitely need to go into studying stage, study the subject from different angles or subject, analyze its anatomy, analyze form, shape, etc. So all these things has to be analyzed if you can't draw it properly. So basically, if I'm going to draw something badly, it's not a... So yeah, it's not something... How do you properly say it? Yeah, it's not the end of the world. Found it. So if I'm not going to draw something like right away in direct implementation of the design, it's not a bad thing. It's not the end of the world. I know that I have instruments in order to make things better, and if I will stumble upon some type of problem with this that I can implement properly, and when I definitely see that there is a problem right here, I'm somehow like asking the question, so okay, since I'm not doing this well, since this one looks with direct implementation badly, that means that I don't have enough information in my mind about this subject. So that's why I need to go into a studying stage, when I just pick the very thing that I'm not good at and just study it to make myself good at it. And then on final stage I will be implementing this. So yeah, but again, the whole thing about this stage, we need to understand what we are capable of just with direct implementation, because artists are always working with direct implementation. They're seeing references and they are drawing from references, not like completely redrawing them like line by line. I mean like just looking at them, and they inspire them to draw something of their own. If they're good at it, that means that they are, of course, have an experience with it. So basically, as an artist, we want it or not, we still need to have this skill. We need to know how to work with references, because again, if you want to draw from your mind, you have to know how to work with references. And this is one of the things that I actually kind of didn't believe a bunch of years. So probably, I don't know, about 3 or 4 years of my artistic experience, I basically rejected references. I said to myself, screw references, I don't need them, I will be drawing everything from my mind. Nope. At the end, it turns out that I can't. So yeah, I could draw from my mind something that I was familiar with, but if I'm not familiar with something like, for instance, Angry Birds and Transformers in terms of drawing them, of course I can't draw them like right away. I need to analyze everything, I need to study these subjects, and then I will produce proper results. So I think this is the thing that make artist good, not his pure skill, but I guess how he or she is dealing with these type of problems. So if you encounter something unfamiliar, you're not just whining and complaining, so I can't draw this, yeah, or instead you just sit and study them. You actually learn how to draw them, and the cool thing about this, you actually will learn a lot, and the more you expand your horizons in terms of artistic freedom, the more you explore your, I'd say, artistic vision. So what I mean by that, so you draw not only one thing, but multiple things. So you're not just sticking to one particular, I don't know, genre, or you are sticking only to one particular fan art, for instance, like Tekken fan art or Soul Calibur fan art, and draw only this one. If you're expanding outside of these genres, it makes you better artists, because you are gaining experience in things that could help you to draw whatever you like better. It doesn't mean that you have to draw what you don't like, of course, but I guess as artists, either way, at some point we need to draw something that we probably don't like that much. But that's one of the reasons why I tend to like everything. So in my journey, I learned that if I will be just rejecting myself or close myself in these frames that, yeah, I like only this one and the rest is complete poop, that way I'm actually constricting myself, and I don't want to be in that position, in this position. I actually want to, whatever work will come to me, I will make the best of it, because I'm not just putting frames on it by saying I don't like this. Of course I have some type of grounds in terms of what I want to draw and when I never will draw, but again, these grounds are more moral than preferential, so they just basically based on morality. But I think I talk about preferential choices. So yeah, I need to go on a break because my brain is kind of starting to a little bit to fade. So yeah, I will be back in a minute, and after break, of course, we're not going to see these references, and the rest of the process probably will spend just trying to analyze these references and trying to implement everything into this piece. So yeah, see you in a bit. And I'm back. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue. Let's continue. Let's continue. Let's continue. Let's continue. What was that? What was that? Please tell me what was that? What was that? Yeah, I need to kind of refresh my mind. Usually these silly things are helping me to refresh my mind. That was amazing vocals. Yeah, so unpredictability, hesitation, tension, freedom. What else we have? So yeah, basically right now I need to put all my references in the second monitor, and this is going to be challenging thing to do because I already kind of second monitor is already using a bunch of open things, so it's going to be pretty uncomfortable. Yeah, reopen our folder with the references. I don't know why I close it. I shouldn't. And I kinda need to find a way to view them all at once. So the cool thing about this program, it's built into Windows. Yeah, so this thing is built into Windows. This is just photos. The cool thing about that, you can just do that. So, or that, or that, or that. It just basically creates a tile of all of your shots. And I almost always use this for reference. They pretty changed. Yeah, they changed a little bit from the previous versions, but I liked previous versions a little bit more in terms of placing this tile. Maybe it's all because they are almost the same, but usually when you're placed the different photo sizes right here, it actually places them pretty kind of chaotically, which is pretty cool thing to do. It's like a collage of your references, and it's a pretty good way to analyze what you have, and if you want to see it from far, you see it from far and kind of in perspective how all these references look, especially when you are trying to use references like, for instance, to depict some type of a light, how this light is going to look from far. It's basically to seeing it in the perspective. Yeah, or just basically trying to analyze shape. This is a pretty cool way. So I usually use this program like for all references, and usually this is enough. But since we now have a Pinterest too, we kind of need to combine them somehow together, and like leaving open two things at once pretty challenging, because again, the chat has to be open in case someone would write, and BS in order to see OBS, not BS. OBS, Open Broadcast Software, has to be open to see if things going right. Not necessarily all the time, but never a bad thing if it isn't. If it is, and usually I need to OBS to open OBS, or at least keep it open and see what's happening. To see what's happening in OBS, like what's recording and what's not, without delay. So yeah, right now I'm basically scrolling through references and trying to figure out what thing I would start from. So what would be the first thing that I would start it from? Just basically try to figure out what's going to be the first. So I guess the first thing that we need to do is just I guess deal with our primary focus, so our birds. So for that I will use mostly the references that we gathered yesterday from the web, from the search engines. I guess I will be drawing on this layer. The only thing... No, I actually need to separate this layer. This thing definitely needs to be separated. Yeah, and I'm going to draw on this one. So this is going to be just like the, I don't know how to call it, just the viz concept. That was not a message. That was not a message. And this is going to be our loose sketch. Let's just call it like this. Loose sketch. This is the last explorational thing. I hope I made it right. Just make a quick check. In a Google Translate. Kinda right. Kinda right. Yep. So yeah, just bring back our references. So again, on the second monitor I basically have opened this photos built into Windows 10 program, and one side and the other side, of course, I have the things that we saved on Pinterest. The cool thing about Pinterest, you can use it if you kind of watching this and trying to figure out what I'm doing. You could use my Pinterest panel on Twitch to go into Twitch and see what references I could use and try to guess it, if you want, of course. But simply right now I'm just going to use reference from Pinterest, and the ones that that the red is, so basically right now I guess I will draw red. The last one I will draw it basically chalk, because it's going to be the hardest thing to draw. Right now I will try to make our red as realistic as possible in terms of, not realistic, but again, oh no, oh no, I pushed the wrong buttons and something happened. I hope stream is still going. Yep. Recording is going. Yeah, it works. Oh, so yeah. Oh, delete selection by selection. That was strange. Yeah, usually I'm doing this and then selecting and deleting it, which is not that good of a thing to do, because much more easier is going to be just go back. But why I'm doing this is because for the most part, when you're working with drawings, you need to constantly select something and delete something and then deselect something. And the reason why I'm doing this constantly every time when I'm go from one monitor to the other, I still need to do some type of action in order for tablet to catch up. But why I'm constantly doing this is just basically I'm practicing or putting into my muscle memory this thing, and I'm kind of doing it like not even thinking about it. So I already trained this and I'm doing it quickly, selecting, deselecting. So for this, like, I'm using about 9 keys, so 3 keys in order to, so yeah, I'm drawing it, then I'm selecting it with 1 key and tablet, then I'm deleting it with 1 key, then I'm push 3 keys to deselect, then I'm switching to drawing again, and it happens in a matter of seconds, but this happens in a matter of seconds only because I kind of practice it and just put it in my muscle memory, and I'm doing it like without even thinking about it. But at the beginning, of course, when you start doing these things, you kind of have to think, what button is selecting, what deselecting. So yeah, you kind of spend a little bit more time on it. But the best way to efficiently work with paintings and drawings without any outside interference or distractions, like for instance technical things like searching what type of button to push. Of course, most of us using hotkeys or shortcuts. These are the ones that we have to learn how to use them. So in my Krita, for instance, I have like my own Krita configuration in my own shortcuts that I made specifically for myself. I save this as a default, and every time that I'm reinstalling Krita, I'm just basically adding them. They are a little bit different from the standard one, and I try to, in every program that I work with, I try to use similar shortcut positions. And of course, I'm also using this guy. Yeah, Razer Nostromo keypad, which basically kind of has profiles for it for different type of program. Most of these programs I'm not working already, so it was created pretty on the earlier stages. So that time I worked with Sai, I worked with the Painter, with the Open Canvas. I basically tried all of them, like Mischief. But at the end, the only thing that I am actually using is my Blender profile, my Illustrator profile for my business stuff when I'm like making designs for my channel, for basically for AleksConnects things. Blender, Photoshop. Again, I'm not working with Photoshop that much, and ZBrush. So these are the ones that I'm constantly using. Yeah, so basically for each of them, it's pretty similar key positioning. So Tab, Shift, Alt, Control. No, Control somewhere here. Yeah, Control right here. X, Z, A, E. These are for zoom in, zoom out. In different programs they are different, placed a little bit differently, but usually I try to zoom out with these. It's pretty easy to do it. And B right here, space right here, it's just for the grab, and basically it's panning through the canvas, which is pretty helpful thing to do. These are basically for selecting, deselecting, or no, this is inverting and bunch of other operations. This is for horizontal switching, basically mirroring, and these are for choosing a probably brush. I don't know, but these are doing something. Again, don't remember what they're doing, but when I'm doing them, like just by using my muscle memory, I kind of know what I'm doing. So I probably can't tell it right now, but my muscle memory knows it. T is basically for this tool, just placing. No, for this one. Yeah, for moving things. And these are just like additional ones. G, E, L, R. And of course this one, yeah, I use for delete. Nostromo, this thing is one of the things that I actually kind of bought right away, because right now I guess you probably can't find Nostromo itself, maybe on Amazon somewhere. But what you can do is definitely buy a newer version of similar thing. But these type of keypads is something that actually helps artists a lot. So for me, this keypad was the thing that actually changed everything. I'm still using keyboards with some type of commands that this keypad just basically can't do because it's already so all keys are already were taken, especially for a Blender. For Blender, this is the biggest problem because Blender has a bunch of shortcuts into him, and you don't have enough keys on a keypad in order to do it. But there's a bunch of keypads in internet that you can find. So keypad is one of the coolest thing to have when you just want to kind of make this automatic and don't stress about all these commands and how to properly put it. Select, rectangular select, lasso. This is one of the most used things that you have to know how to use. And of course the things that you use pretty rarely, just use them by clicking on them. Or remember the shortcut and just click on the keyboard itself. So in terms of a placement, my keypad, of course, left, right in the center I have my tablet, tilted. It's not just lying, it's tilted. I think in some time I will definitely show you my placement of things, and my keyboard is right after my keypad, so I always can go from a keypad right away to the keyboard. Keyboard pretty small, mini, like notebooks or even smaller. That allows pretty quick things, and the cool thing about that, your hand is rarely gets like so tired. Eventually it is, but much rarely if when comparing to when I worked with the only keyboard, because I kind of killed all my wrists, both left one and right one, by working with the keyboard only, because it kind of always distracted me from painting with stylus, and then I kind of pressed too hard on stylus, and I don't know, these distractions are always kind of. So it took me, of course, years to like adjust to all these things. Maybe because I didn't practice that much. That's why it took me years. But you're pretty quickly adjusting to them. I think in reality it's a couple of months of constant work without like any breaks. Big breaks, I mean, like week, month, 6 months. Yeah. So yeah, let's start. So I kind of get distracted. So yeah, so right now I think I need to just basically draw our guy. So let's just see where our motion, in order to not confuse anything with anything. So okay, where our motion things. I don't remember where they are. I don't remember where they are. I don't remember where they are. Yeah, so here they are. So I need to keep in mind all these gestures when I'm going to work with gesture right now. So of course you can't work when there's so much busyness right here. So right now I kind of need to decide what I need to get rid of and what I need to leave in order to follow the next step. Well, let's just think. So we definitely need to know our gesture lines. The question is if we need them like this, or we just simply remember where they're going and we don't need them to be shown. I think so we definitely don't need our areas, because it's kind of pretty understandable. We already placed every character where there has to be, and we don't going to be stressed about areas now. So areas definitely has to be turned off. In terms of these gesture lines, we could dim them out a little bit, like tone them about 20. That way we see them, but they are not distracting. But the problem we have these, which are going to be our base for implementing a gesture into our poses. So, and also we need these in order to stay correct in terms of the proportions. So it's going to be hard to decide what we are going to leave. This one is pretty important too, because we need to see it as a whole, as a cohesive thing. Yeah, we'll probably need to dim this one, but make it, wait a minute, maybe like this. But it's still pretty busy. It looks, I'd say it looks too busy. Because I don't want to miss something because I turned it off. Because if I turned it off, I'm not going to have these gesture lines that I established earlier, and I definitely will make things seem robust and not dynamic, which is not my intentions. So we definitely need to stay with this one. We could probably get rid of our gesture lines, our flow lines, because most of the directions are already kind of established with these lines. Not all of them, but yeah, we have this one, we have this type of direction, we have this one, this one, this one, and these. Yeah, I guess for the characters we definitely can work without flow lines. Wow. I don't know what music is playing, if it was appropriate or not. Pretty slow piano. The question is, do we need this one, or we need to we are going to work with the this composition is definitely has to be turned off. So yeah, we don't need too much busyness. The only thing that we need is just basically this one, and of course we need to make our shapes and whatnot like less evident. Yeah, this composition is, we don't need it. Información. Grid. What is this layer? Oh. Let's call it qualities. QL. Okay, character base we don't need. These ones we don't need. Or I don't know, maybe we need these because we are going to kind of translate proportions, so it would be a good thing to have how these proportions are going to be translated, because yeah, we translated these proportions like overall, but we definitely not worked on translating these small proportions. So we need some type of example how these proportions would look. So I guess it'd be a pretty cool thing to state, to leave it. So yeah, these we can actually get rid of, because, or not get rid of, but make them less evident. So right now we need to focus on characteristics. Yes. So yeah, basically I'm going to draw on this layer. Yes. This is a visual concept. Oh yes. This one. Yeah, and after you organized everything, it's kind of time to. Oh, that was not cool. Yeah. I definitely not going to finish with the sketch today. I think I will continue tomorrow. But at least I guess start. We have like in about an hour to make things right, or at least make things close to right. Capusta. Capiche? Yeah, of course, when I'm going to draw, I'm definitely not going to talk that much, I guess, because I still can't manage to do it like at the same time and talk and draw. And I tried that too many times, but still, when you're working with these type of compositional things, you just basically following lines of the composition. But when you're actually trying to put something from your mind and analyze references, I think much more part of your brain is kind of in work, and basically the right part of your brain is working, mostly unconscious part, and your consciousness is kind of don't want so unconscious don't want for consciousness to distract it. Yeah, that was a bad example, but still, this is a pickle. Yeah, and also we need to dim down a little bit all this information, because again, to make this, where is this though? This one. Basically all sketches has to be dimmed down in opacity. These 1, 2, we don't need distractions. What this layer is, I need to put it down to oh yeah, we have different layers for different things. So we have for table different layers. By the way, we need table see-through for that too, not just a table. The problem is that we don't have proper placement. Yeah, as you see on our see-through table, we don't have proper placement, unfortunately. The rest is the same, but like it's like I actually misplaced it at some point. The problem is what was misplaced, the original or the table itself. But this is the problem of not locking layers. I didn't lock layer, and now cannot think that I probably misplaced it somehow. Yeah, it has to be like this. The best way to check this out is to check our perspective lines, what we drawn before, but I don't remember where they are. Not proportion studies, not this one, not this. Yeah, even if you organized things, you still can yeah, proportion translation. I don't know. Seems like this is right. So yeah, I actually misplaced it. Yeah, this one works fine. It's questionable for this, but size of this one is bigger than this one, so it's pretty hard to. Yeah, I guess the good way would be just to log them, because since sometimes we could misplace them, unfortunately. Yeah, now I'm going to use this one. We'll just log them all because I don't want them to shift in any direction. So we don't need table, but we are going to use C first, because we're going to put things inside and we need to understand them. But still, again, the problem is we need to kind of redraw this guide for chair right here. Let's do this. Unlock, put full black, and just go with the quick lines. I hope it's drawing though. I can't see, but I hope it is. We'll see. Nope. Why? Why didn't it draw anything? Seriously, why? What's the reason? It's not drawing at all. There's no selection. We are working with black. It's unlocked. Why it's not drawing? Please tell me the reason. What happened? Technical difficulties. Technical difficulties. So I can erase them. So I'm on a proper layer. But for some reason it just don't draw anything here. It's like I'm drawing. Wait a minute. Maybe I choose a erase, or no, like right here. No, I actually have to draw it. It's drawing white for some reason. It doesn't have to. I choose black. It's definitely I chose black. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I forgot. We have filter that makes things. Yep. We have a filter that makes things invert. So when I'm working with white, it actually draws black. When I'm working with black, it actually draws white. So that's white. Yeah. That was stupid. But now I know what was the problem. What is the problem? What is the problem? Now I know what is the problem. Right now I'm just going back to the state of, I don't know what type of state, but I guess I made a bunch of stupid things right here. I don't know if it actually goes back or it just froze. Doesn't matter. Let's make it 15. So yeah, I forgot about this filter mask that makes things inverted. So yeah, in order to draw black, we need to draw actually white. We have inverted thing here. So yeah, let's just draw on this table, make it like two. Yeah, and basically we make these lines just to see. Again, this is sketch. Not that necessary to go with a proper 100% placement, I guess. Yeah. the only thing that we didn't have, and we need to erase this one, the old placement, to not throw us off, not destruct our house. We don't need another destruction. We have bunch without. And also we kinda have to suggest see-through too. It's pretty, yeah, we don't have see-through here, so we need to kinda figure out see-through. See-through by ourselves. See-through by ourselves. I don't know, the one question that I have right now, which kind of bugs me a little bit, is what to do, because I'm dealing with this project a lot in terms of the time spent on it, and the problem is the faster I will make it, the better, but I don't want to rush it too much because I want to make it quality project, of course. But again, if you want to create a quality, so the problem is that since I am streaming only from Monday till Friday, these creative streams, I have pretty limited amount of time to work on this project throughout the week. And the question is, I definitely don't want to stream in weekends because I don't have that opportunity, at least in a day. So the idea was kind of one of the variants. How could I approach this problem is to just basically make recordings throughout the day or whatever I free at weekends, because again, it's not going to be scheduled. Whatever I got free in the weekend, I will basically make a recording of these streams, then I just upload them on Twitch, and just basically will stream them as VODs, VOD. I don't know how you properly call them. So this is one of the ways how I could make this, but it actually creates its own problems, because in reality I need to work on this every day and much more than 3 or 4 hours in order to finish it, but again, I don't have that much time, unfortunately, to put into this, and that's why it's too long. It takes me too long, and the longer it takes, like, time is ticking, come on. And kind of want this project to be over, like, I don't know, in 2 weeks, but because of limited time that you have to stream this project live, and everything that regarding this project has to happen in live streams, ideally, kind of makes things a little bit problematic, and that's why I can't stream. It takes me much longer to make this. If I would probably stream 8 hours a day every day, then probably a couple of weeks and we definitely would finish. But this pew 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 I tried to showcase distance between streams. Like, this is 4 hours, 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 and since I'm not streaming every day 4 hours, sometimes I only have 3 or 2. It's kind of pretty stupid. It's a pretty small amount of hours, when in reality it has to be 8, and work is done. But we use what we have, right? So unfortunately, we can't use more. In the future, I definitely want to put more time in it. But for now, I don't have that possibility. So I'll just continue. Yeah, just ignore that. It was for energetic refresh. I need energetic refreshes. Yeah, so the only thing that I did so far is kinda depicted our table thing. Let's just leave it at this. Ideally we could just delete this because I definitely drawn it properly, but nah. Let's just make it, let's just put it right here in case we wanted to go back. And let's just go. Okay, now the problem is to basically depict this pose right the way that I kind of wanted to depict it. Of course, now we have references and we actually can make it much more realistic in terms of hand placements, or I'm going to call it hands because, come on, these are the wings, but come on, they're hands. Again, they don't have to be detailed at all. This is not the case. The only thing that they have to be, or they have to have, is just like they have to stick to the gesture, and they not only have to stick to the gesture, they actually have to add to the gesture. The more they are going to add to the gesture, the better it's going to be on later stages. So the hardest thing about this type of stage is to kind of stick to the proportions, which is usually problematic. Stick to the designs, which is problematic too, because I didn't put that much time into studying all these things. So that's why we probably definitely will need, we're gonna need to go in different stages. Oh yeah, I actually wanted to put this one right here and make him hold a cup. Again, since this is pretty low details, again, like this is 100%, and since we're not, definitely can't draw like this, we're just going to kill our wrist. I'm drawing it like pretty close and pretty pixelized, but when we're going to go back, it has to be evident what is happening. For now, it's not evident at all. So just rework this until we are going to come to the right thing. Again, right now I'm already facing the problem. So if I will translate his wing in perspective, it has to be smaller, and I kind of show this pretty big. So his wing is actually much shorter. But problem is the gesture is planned pretty. Yeah, it's going to be challenging thing to do though. Make things work right here. So again, by doing this is basically I'm asking questions. What things we need to attack in the next stage or in our final reference stage. So okay, he's holding the cup. Yeah. Now the problem is how to place his second hand or wing in here and make it look like he. I can't do this though. It wouldn't work. So I need to place his wing lower, probably rotate it a little bit. And we need to change the direction of the cup too. And his wing is going to go right here. Second one. Yeah, it looks pretty strange. That's where things become challenging. And also I didn't work with these stages like that much, so for me it's again like first experience, so it's pretty hard to make things work right away. So I need to spend a little bit of time to basically gain experience in. I guess the shape is going to be pretty simple, and the same definitely is going to look like a bean shape, so the shape I think will stay the same. The things that will change, I guess, it's his brows, his eye, and also we need to think about them in perspective, of course. And again, when we're working with this small pretty hard to see details, but the good thing about this, we don't need details. We need to just like vague suggestions that could help us to make our picture in my mind less vague. Establishing beak. It's going to look horrible. Because it's pretty hard thing to do, like translate this type of design right here, because when you're working with a particular angle it's much more easier, but like then it starts to get pretty hard. And again, since we're working with a pixelized detalization, it's pretty hard to properly place all these proportional things in here. If we would work with a bigger, of course, canvas, we could go into details more and make it look much more realistic and actually spend time on putting these proportions right. But since this stage is just basically suggestive stage, it's going to look bad. And since we're working with a small proportions, or not proportion, but with a limited scale, either way, the main thing is to just showcase the illusion of reality, which is much harder to do with the pixels, because you need to wisely choose where to put every pixel. And since we're not working with the pixel art, but we kind of have to approach it as a pixel art at this point, and it's pretty hard. Of course, we could use this one, like draw it like this, but that way we restrict ourselves for small details. And I definitely can't like put it too small, because that way I couldn't even see. Where the beak is placed and whatever, so it's gonna mix things. Yeah, it's too far. It's pretty hard to depict something concrete. You still can try, at least, to put things as close as possible, but it's pretty hard. I think his brows has to be much bigger. Yeah, I'm kind of starting to see something in it. Slowly. Just go up a little bit higher. Save. In case. Again, if it's not looking properly in terms of a design placement and real proportions, it's not the stage that we're going to achieve this. This stage is basically a suggestive stage. We need to gather some type of visual information, additional visual information that we build on so far in our mind, and just basically vomit it on our canvas. It doesn't have to be pretty, so it's just going to be a vomit of everything that we are searched so far. It's a bad probably example, but still it is example. And I guess it's understandable because it doesn't have to be pretty at all, and what's not pretty at all? Vomit. Yeah, so probably that. So yeah, I guess one of his wings definitely has to go right here. So like, let's just put it in here. On like smaller details, we're definitely going to think later. This wing goes from there. Again, if we make his wing longer, we kind of could, because I guess it's in reality much longer that I depicted it from here. I guess his wing is actually something like this, but the reference from which I actually drawn this was definitely not the right one, and the angle, of course, with this type of foreshortening is definitely not working. So. But again, this is kind of half the thing that I imagined to it, so it doesn't look pretty, it's bad in terms of proportions, but still it has that type of emotion that I had to picture. So kind of let's consider it enough for our current purposes. And also, yeah, right here is going to be definitely some type of a separation, or not separation, but overlapping, because right here is going to be a table. We also could kind of work with these things right away. Yeah, because either way we need to work with them. So kind of imagine what type of table we will place right here. So let's just go right into it. So we're not going to work with a separate things, but wait a minute, this is the wrong direction. Hello there. Actually, our table is much broader. Yeah, so yeah, we're just basically implementing all these things one by one, step by step. I don't know if we need to make this table that big in terms of a height. It has to be probably a little bit smaller. But again, doesn't matter. This is just a base sketch. We don't need to stress about things anymore. So yeah, of course we're thinking about overlapping. We already, if we will cover overlapping here, it definitely will benefit us. Like in a mile. So when we're going into details, these overlaps are starting to become more obvious. And I guess this cup has to be smaller. It looks too big. Make it a bit smaller. Ideally, that would be cool if they had like small teacups, but I don't know. Small teacups is not something that you would probably draw. But I guess at the end, I will make them small. But I'm not thinking about these type of small designs, because again, since cups, teapots and the rest of things are going to be pretty easy to depict in terms of they're realistic, so we're going to just basically use references. Right now, the only thing that we need to do is just basically draw a acceptable sketch that will help us to finally gather all this reference information that we got so far and to make something out of it. Not just waiting for the last stage to cover all these things, but rather just make this right now. So I still don't know how I will use his. If I'm going to search references, for instance, I'm not seeing there's no time when his feathers on his head are placed in front of him. They're almost always, not almost, but they always seem to directionally face back, even when he's angry. That's why it probably looks pretty strange when I at the beginning drawn this as a suggestion. I think in order to make him really annoyed, we need to just basically put it closer to his, like this. So if we would use this one, that would definitely not show any collectiveness. But again, if we are putting it right here, it's something like you are, I don't know, if you have ears, it's just like a rabbit. And if you try to hide or collect yourself, you're basically just putting these ears in front of your eyes, something like this, or on your head, or outside, or on your head, like this. So yeah, imagine this is ears, and he basically put his ears right here because he's annoyed or frustrated, or in our case, tense. This thing is definitely will depict it better. We're not going to work with a cross hatching. I could, but there's no point doing this. It only will make our drawing more confusing, because like right now I kind of want to showcase some type of feathery right here, but it kind of looks cool. But again, I don't want to put unnecessary details at this stage, and small canvas like in 300 zoom almost makes us stay in these grounds, because usually one of the problems that I faced before, I kind of created like full canvas like this, never worked with the small thumbnails, and just right away started to sketching on this giant canvas with the size of like 300 something, no, 3000 on something. Yeah, this is too big, and you need to restrict your mind, you need to restrict your thinking in terms of these small type of things. That's why most of the artists are actually kind of suggesting to draw in using thumbnails, because thumbnails is an awesome thing to kind of restrict you from going into details too early on the stages. And this is pretty cool because again, there's only so much you can do with these small pixels, like a couple of gestures, lines, and that's it. You only need to find the right one. Looks pretty cool, I think. You definitely can see that he's pretty hesitant towards this one, or at least you feel something into it. I could play later with a brow, with the placement of brow, make this brow face, make it a little bit more sarcastically, like this. Like that. I will play with it later. For now, I'm not thinking about that. Again, the basic feeling. We need to face or depict just basic emotions. So remember, we right now are vomiting on our canvas. It might sound pretty gross, but we don't have to produce good results now. It's not something that we are thinking of. The only thing that we're thinking of is just to kind of, again, explore. Okay, now, hello, big guy, or I don't know what's thing's going to be next. Next, we would go with the Transformers. No. So yeah, before we finish, because again time is running out, I think first thing I messed up the table. Definitely messed up the table. It gone wrong, out of line, which created problems. I need to address this problem. What to do? Yeah, so the thing about table, I definitely want to make him a little bit more curved in angles, on angles, Maybe I even make it a little bit tilted, like right here, for instance. I create some type of an interesting tilt right here. Who knows? Let's just experiment again. If something not going to work, we will address it later. So right away we need to establish things that are going to prevent us from drawing things, unnecessary things. So since we definitely know that we are going to have here some type of a tablecloth, let's just go in our references to the tablecloth designs and see what type of tablecloth we would picture. Again, right away I kind of liked a two layered or multiply layered tablecloth, which kind of have first layer. It goes something like right here, like this. Of course, we always have to think about overlapping, and in this case, since we're not necessarily sure what type of transformer's head is going to be here, overlap is definitely something that will be present, I guess, but we always can change this. So the proper way would be first deal with something on the foreground and then working with something on the background. That way we could adjust things on the background to things on the foreground, because much harder to work on something foreground and adjust foreground to our big background. But again, it all works in theory. How it works for you in practice, only you can decide. So I basically just going to try all these methods and see what works, what's not. Interesting. So right here we kind of have kind of like this, something. It's pretty long though. We can't forget that it definitely doesn't have to go like too low. So yeah, it's probably going to be much higher. Even this small thing, like, we always have to think about design. For instance, if we draw a tablecloth right here like this, let's just go, and it's going to be this size. Of course, we need to think about perspective right here too, how it would go right here. We always have to think about design divisions right here too. So for instance, we can't create the same, so we can't make them equal, these things. We have to make them different sizes. So again, small, middle, big. This one is big, this one has to be small. We will erase this one. It's just a table thing that helps us to understand when the table is. And so this is just basically going to be big, this one's going to be small. And we could even add an additional one, which is going to be a medium sized. But I think this is like already touches the floor, which is too long. We don't need them to touch the floor. We always have to remember that we need to place under this table Quintessa, and this actually creates a pretty big problem for our tablecloth. So in reality, I would definitely depict her, or it, but by it I mean tablecloth, as long as possible to cover this messiness under the table. But since we are going to work with the Quintessa under the table, we kind of need to think about it right away. So we have to restrict our tablecloth length into a pretty short one. So we can't go too far. We still have to kind of have some type of place right here to showcase a Quintessa. And it's actually really problematic right now, because yeah, now we need to think about it. This way, working on the background first and then drawing what's on the foreground is much more efficient way to deal with it. right here is differently. First we need to deal with this one and then make this one appropriate length. But again, since things are always related to each other, by changing one thing you have to kind of always adjust this thing to the other thing. And if we, for instance, change the tablecloth length, we will definitely change, we have to change Quintessa's placement and the height of this head to make them overlap but avoid tangents, because the more elements in your work you have, the harder it is to avoid tangents, especially in the cases when they are constantly overlapping or they're close to overlapping. For instance, we faced it right here with the wing. We had to place wing a little bit lower to showcase that table is overlapping but not create a tangent. And the same thing is for everything in the work. And like, these things seem small, but they matter. They matter much. These things are probably the things that usually separates like professionally looking work from the beginner's work. Because when you see the work of the beginner, complete beginner, like when you don't know anything about like art theory, usually you see these type of things. Small things like proportions, the problem with proportions in correlation with each other, problem with tangents, especially problem with overlapping, usually with lack of overlapping, because like when we're starting to draw as children, we usually draw things separately. We usually not tend to divide them. So yeah, I draw like stick figure mother, I draw a stick figure father. That looks like a father, definitely. Whatever. Yeah, I draw stick figure father and I draw stick figure myself. Yeah. They're completely broken. So yeah, when you draw this, and as children we usually kind of avoid overlapping, and when the beginners is actually starting to draw, they kind of have this old notion that overlapping is bad and everything seems to be separated and has its own space, and it's actually a kind of psychology into it, like psychology of a drawing. The further you place, yeah, there's some type of a, I guess, science that deals with a psychology of drawings, children drawings especially. So if, for instance, children are drawing parents far from each other, it means that children are definitely know that their parents struggling in terms of relationships. They might not understand everything about it, but they feel something. And if they draw, for instance, themselves in the middle, they feel like children are fighting for their attention, or the opposite, they try to choose what type of parent, or their parents forcing them to choose, so something like that. So basically it's all about psychology in the end. And when you start, like in the beginning, you're basically separating these, making these divisions, and children are pretty so they very good in pinpointing these things psychologically, and the whole science of like making this, the further you place them psychologically, it makes them more distant. The same for like the distance between, so yeah, parents. So children are pretty awesome by pinpointing these things, and by looking at children's drawing you actually can learn a lot, and by analyzing them in this way, it's a pretty cool thing. So, and I think when child comes to you and shows you, look what I draw. Yeah, like you don't have to look at this like, this is a bad proportions. You have awful thing here and awful thing here. Of course, this is a bad way to teach, I think. Again, I'm not a teacher, but I kind of imagine how it could be. The best way is to approach it, of course, in an analytical way. You for yourself kind of have to be a psychologist and try to analyze. I think there is a reason why this child is drawing this thing. It's in drawings of the children drawings kind of, they usually scream about something, and as a teacher I think you have to kind of keep attention on these things and analyze these things and see how you could help this child in a proper way by not interfering too much, like, because again there's a bunch of things into it, so yeah, we're not going to go into it. So yeah, basically getting back to what I started to talk about, and basically I guess let's just finish a stream on that note, because I'm not going to continue next something. Again, the problem right here is to understand what type of length we are going to depict our cloth. If it's going to be too long, that way it definitely blocks out quintessa, and the whole idea is just basically dead. We don't need that. So basically I need to figure out how to properly deal with this, and we're definitely going to do this on the next stream. But let's just finish on like looking at drawings as children probably. Yeah, so again, when you're a beginner, when you only start, usually the mistakes that you make is again by placing things and avoiding overlaps. I remember when I started, like I actually kind of was scared to put things and overlap things. For instance, overlap this one with this one. For me it was like, no, you have to divide things, come on. If you're drawing this thing here, statue has to be here. It doesn't have to overlap. And of course I'm not talking about perspective. Usually it looks like, no, statue has to be here and Angry Bird has to be here. They can't be like put on top of each other. This is strange. It not works like this. And so yeah, children think a little bit differently in terms of like placement. But they're pretty good on composition though, like at least on this type of composition that works with the placement. They're good with understanding a flow, with a direction. It all kind of comes to them, I said intuitively, I would say intuitively, and it's definitely not something that looks pretty, but sometimes it doesn't definitely not looks that like cool and professional, but still you can see basics of design in there. And if children or if child just basically stops drawing at some point, then these things are basically just fade away, and he or she just basically forgets them. But there's a bunch of psychology into it. Children are pretty good with shapes. They understand that round shape is a good shape, and this shape is somewhat static shape, and this shape is actually dangerous shape. The problem is that when we are studying this in the design schools, we kind of already know these things from our childhood, but throughout our journey we just forget about them, and we still need to go in like special schools or gather this knowledge in some type of books to figure out how these things are actually different from each other and what type of emotion they are invoking. But funny thing is that as a child we kind of already knew this before, but it just fades away. And the cool thing about like studying children's scratches or their sketches or their pictures, you can kind of pinpoint these things in there. Of course, if you gone deep into this, and you can learn a lot from them in terms of like how to place things, how arrange things. The more experience they kind of get, if they continue to pursue art, the more they got into perspective. For instance, when I opened for myself perspective, since then I never draw a flat picture. I always try to put pictures in perspective. But the problem was I always used a isometric perspective without any foreshortening. Yeah, and it was pretty limited, but still it was pretty cool. And again, either way, I kind of feared to go into overlapping. I'm still placed things like this, but I remember I'm not remembering, I'm actually have my old drawings, then like from kindergarten probably, or from school, from like 1st grade to 5th grade probably. In these, I remember that I kind of already started to experiment with overlapping, and somehow I actually avoided tangents. I don't know, I don't remember tangents that much. I need to kind of see them again to analyze this thing, but still. And again, when you're starting, you kind of making the same mistakes. You making mistakes with overlapping. You fear of overlapping and usually just placing things separately from each other, and it's pretty quickly makes your space pretty limited, because there's only so much things you can place in this type of restrictions. That's why overlapping, learning how to use overlapping is one of the awesomest things to learn, because that way you actually learn how to place multiple objects into one space, because you started to realize that there's something more than a flat space to it. You now have deepness in your space, or yeah, like third dimension, and that's when it becomes, of course, much more harder. But in the end, the more you push it, the better you get at it. So yeah, let's just finish on that note. So again, we are going to work in the next session, or in the next, I don't know, should I have to call it sessions? I decided to call sessions like Magic the Gathering sessions, like MTG study, but should I call this sessions too? No, let's just call them streams. Yeah, let's just call them streams. And Magic the Gathering study is going to be actually not streams but sessions. So yeah, that's that. Let's just slowly finish. What's the time? What time it is? Yeah, so we basically gone into like 4 hours, or 3 hours plus. Yeah. So yeah, in the next stream I basically will continue to work on these things. I will continue to figure out how to implement these poses by using references, and basically again, this is going to be just our vomiting stage when we just trying to put all our gathered information somehow into our canvas. It will allow us to gain more visual information, because right now we in our brain, supposedly on this stage, by taking all these previous steps, we kind of have, I think, pretty vague picture of what we're seeing, and because we don't have like visuals to it, and because yes, I know where things are going to be placed, it's cool, I know what type of size they're going to be, but still I'm not picturing this in more details. I'm still seeing only these basic shapes, and all my oh come on, and in my imagination everything looks pretty vague, and basically this stage is supposed to help us to bring this from our imagination as clear to what we imagine is possible at this point. And this will be our starting point that we are going to use for working with light, from putting much more complex lighting composition, colors composition, and materials composition. Because composition is, we're working on composition constantly. We never stop. We're working on composition right now, and so is for design. So these stages are never ending. They are going until we are putting our last brush stroke. That's when composition and design actually kind of stops, because you stop working on your work. But yeah. So yeah, I guess on that note, let's just say our bye-byes and this stream, and hope it was helpful. It surely was helpful for me. As always, every time that I'm doing this, I'm learning something new. Even when it seems that I know what I'm talking about, or the opposite, sometimes I'm kind of analyzing on a go, and most of these thoughts are not permanent. So like I'm thinking about them now at this way, and in some time I will probably change my mind on them. That makes me actually grow. So that makes me to feel this growth, because I kind of have to go through these analytical stages in order to get to some point. Because again, without exploring, you can't find particular things. So exploration is a good thing. So probably, yeah, I guess let's just finish with this. See you tomorrow when we are going to continue to work on final sketching. So, and there's going to be analytical sketching, and it will take us a bunch of time, a lot of time, but still, if we tackle most of these problems on these simple stages, less work we need to do on the later stages, and the faster we will finish with our work, and the more quality this work will gain, of course, because this is the whole point, to make quality work and to put in our work as much as we can, as we know. So yeah, on that note, let's just say our goodbyes, and thank you for watching, and see you on the next stream. Yeah, so kinda bye bye.